This is episode 81 of the Andrew Hines Real Estate Investing Podcast. Welcome to episode 81 of the Andrew Hines Real Estate Investing Podcast. Today, I have Lyn Lebeau on the show, and Lyn is a real estate investor who's primarily investing in Timmins, Ontario, which for those of you who are not familiar, that's Northern Ontario, about 3 hours straight north of Sudbury. So much colder climate than down here in Southern Ontario, Burlington, where I live. However, it's a fantastic investing opportunity, as Lyn shares on this episode, and she even gave an example of how she turned one of her projects into a 9% rule. Yes, 9%. So you've heard me talk about the 1% rule. A lot of investors strive to get 1% of their purchase price as their monthly gross rent. So if they buy for $400,000, they want to get $4,000 in monthly rent. I know that probably sounds slightly unreasonable to you because it's very rare to find in Southern Ontario. However, what we are seeing, and I've seen from the last couple of guests that I've had from Northern Ontario, is that it is possible out there. It's possible in Eastern Ontario, and heck, it is even possible down here in Southern Ontario. You just got to work a lot harder for it. So depending on the market you pick, you can get a lot bigger rent numbers, and Lyn shared some of those numbers today, how she was able to completely replace her employment income. She's a chartered accountant by trade. She completely replaced her employment income. She owns 22 properties, 68 doors in Timmins, Ontario, and she shares that story. She shares how she self-manages and makes her entire operation work, and she's got a great attitude. She's a good storyteller, and I'm confident you're going to enjoy this episode. Quick reminder for those of you who are new to the podcast, please make sure that you head back to the early episodes, go right through 1 to 20. Those are very, very informative episodes where I break down numbers very specifically. I assure you that the concepts we've covered on this show evolve over time, and if you want to have a complete understanding, it's highly advantageous to go through all the episodes and, of course, hear from all the wonderful guests that have been on this show. There's so much knowledge that they've delivered. Further to that, you can download the cash flow sheet that I use to analyze deals at andrew-hines.com/cashflow. And as always, I would greatly appreciate it if you want to let me know that I'm doing a good job by leaving a 5-star review on Apple Podcasts. It'd be greatly appreciated. For those of you watching on YouTube or any other platform, please make sure that you've hit that subscribe button and give it a like if you can. Leave a comment if you can. I really do appreciate it. It helps more people to receive this podcast, and it helps it to grow. So thanks so much for that. Without further ado, here is episode 81 with Lyn Lebeau. Hello and welcome to the Andrew Hines Real Estate Investing Podcast. I have Lyn Lebeau. I'm hoping I'm saying that right on the podcast. Lyn, thanks for being here.
Thanks for having me.
Lyn, I know that you had reached out to me and I had a long overdue email response, which I finally got to. So I'm not familiar with your story. Would you mind just telling me and our audience a little bit about yourself and what you're doing in real estate?
Absolutely. Okay, so I started investing in real estate in 2008, where I purchased my first property. It was really about helping out an old friend. We were bad kids through high school. And anyway, so I left the area where I grew up and kind of cleaned up my own act. And so, but he kind of went down that other road where he got into some pretty heavy stuff anyways. The deal was I would invest in this property. He would maintain it and do all the maintenance, do all the work on it, the whole property management and stuff. And I would give him 50% of my after-tax dollars in order to do that. So that was my initial intent. So I really had no idea that I was going to be getting into real estate, to the extent that I've been now. And so I bought the first property, and the deal was that he had to keep his act clean, any illegal activities, and the deal was over, and, he wouldn't get 50% of, my after-tax dollars. So that's kind of started. I bought my first building, then I bought the second one in 2009. And then from there, he ended up for some peddly little stuff that he ended up doing illegally. He ended up losing his half of the deal. So anyway, so that's kind of where I started. And then in 2012-13 is where I decided to go all in. I was working for a company that was on the verge of bankruptcy. And I was trying to figure out how I was going to replace my 6-figure income without moving from where I live. And anyways, I was driving to Timmins, where I invest. So it's a small town up north. and I was going to check on the 2 properties that I had. And this is when I flew it in. I thought, okay, what am I thinking? Just do more of this, right? So just invest more. And so the properties that we were purchasing, the first one that I purchased, I got, it had 4 apartments and a rooming house with 4 doors. And we purchased that one for $49,000. And it brought in $45 in revenue, right? So
it brought in $4,900 a month.
It was bringing in $4,500 a month, yes, in revenue at the time. It's even more now, but yeah, at the time, that's what it was bringing in.
Okay, so we talk about like the 1% rule. You're getting like 9%. That happened.
Yep, it did. And so the second one that he found, that one
this is your original partner.
The original partner.
So he found some deals for you. Okay.
Yeah, exactly. Okay. He was finding these deals. So the first one, he had called me. He was trying to figure out if he should invest with this other partner. And I asked him what he knew about the partner, and he says, well, he's pretty sketchy. But I'm thinking, yeah, well, these are the kind of people you hang with. So what do you expect, right? Mm-hmm. So anyways, and that's when I asked him, I said, well, why aren't you asking me about, for the money? And he says, really, you would do that? And I'm like, maybe, you never know. So anyways, when I went to check it out, I thought, if it'll keep him clean, then yeah, let's just do it. Right. So anyways, yeah. So the second deal that he found about a year later was a 6-plex. And that one there, we got it for $40,000. And wow. Yeah, they're insane numbers for sure. So we fixed it up. He knew how to handle the people. That one was it was a crack house at the time, but he knew how to handle these people. So he got them all out, and we got some decent people in there. We fixed up the places, and it appraised at $235. So.
How did you end up investing in Timmins? Like, why Timmins? Is that where you grew up, or?
Yes, that's where I grew up. So this is where he was still living.
Okay.
And yeah, so in 2012, though, when I was driving up, and then I figured out, okay, well, if I could just do more of this was pretty easy. So if I can do more of this, then I could replace my 6-figure income pretty quickly. But the issue was I didn't have a whole lot of money available to me. So I went and got a couple of credit lines, and that's how I got started. So really what I did is I took $100,000 of the bank's money and turned it into a few $1 million in property, and replaced my 6-figure income. So yeah, so it worked out well.
Okay, so 2012, you went at it full time. How long did it take you to get to a point where you were ready to quit, or did you quit in 2012? That's when you quit. Yeah. No,
I kept working. And so in 2012-13, I did 18 deals in 12 months, and so. So this is where I was doing deal after deal after deal. But while I was still working, basically I was working for the most part 80 to about 100 hours per week, because they ended up putting me in charge of the turnaround of the organization that I was working for. And so I was putting in all these crazy hours, not knowing for sure that we were going to be able to turn it around. And finally we did. The company is still alive and well today, which is great. But I got to leave my 6-figure job to be able to do real estate. Basically, I shouldn't say real estate on a full-time basis, because I do still do, I do coaching, and I also do business coaching, that kind of stuff. So I do coaching on the real estate side, and I do the business coaching. So I don't necessarily do real estate full-time.
Okay. Where do you live now?
I live in Sudbury.
Okay, you're in Sudbury, which is also a good market for investing right now. You're not interested in investing there?
You know what? When I did decide to do this, like to go full in, I had to make a decision as to where I would invest. And I started looking in Sudbury, and quickly realized that the cap rates in Sudbury were so much lower than the cap rates in Timmins. And so the Timmins market just made sense. So it's the same house that I can buy in Timmins, say I buy a triplex in Timmins for, at the time, $120,000. Well, the same type of property in Sudbury would be, like in the worst area of Sudbury, would be $220,000. So, and you're getting basically the same rents. Mm-hmm. just made sense to invest in Timmins versus investing in Sudbury.
What's the economic driver in Timmins? Why do people go there?
So, the mines are there. So there's, the gold mines. So that's big.
They have gold mines there? Interesting.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah. They call it the city with the heart of gold. So it's, so basically, if the market shifts a lot in Timmins, and the reason is, and I say a lot, like it could go down 8% when the price of gold goes down because they don't have all the contractors coming in. So the mines employ their own people, but then when the price of gold goes up and they want to, they want to get more production, then they bring in all these contractors. And so this is where, you're able to rent out your, a 2-bedroom for like $1,200. And then you've got, but then when it goes down, then you're probably renting your 2 bedrooms out for like $900 to $1,000, right? So.
Yeah, it must be surging right now. Gold's at all-time high, pretty much.
Yeah. The other thing is that there's a lot of students coming in for college and stuff. A lot of students coming in from India, and so that was driving up the price as well.
What college is in Timmins?
There's Northern College in Timmins, and there's Collège Boréal, which is the French one. And
okay.
Yeah, so mainly, for Northern College, the students are coming in from India.
Interesting. You just would never have thought that Indian students are coming into Timmins, Ontario to go to school.
Yeah, I know. A little crazy.
It's way up there. I mean, I guess in the grand scheme of things, though, I kind of consider Winnipeg to be way up there, which you're almost actually as high up as Winnipeg in terms of latitude.
Yeah, absolutely.
So it probably gets a little cold out there.
Yeah, for sure. I did work with the college for about a year, I guess, as a consultant. And so one of the big things they were working on was trying to, because the population of Timmins, there's not a lot of the residential students that are going to the colleges. And so they were trying to figure out how to increase increase the number of students that they had. And so they came up with a plan. So they've been going out and doing a lot of recruitment out in these different places. So they targeted India as one of the main ones. So that's, one of the main reasons why they're getting so many.
Interesting. Yeah, I know they were doing it at Western back when I went there. They were doing a lot of heavy recruiting from China. And I'm not sure if that's all going to change now, if we're still going to have Chinese students coming in a large quantity, or if that's going to majorly change with the whole international policy towards China. Although Trudeau seems very side tangent. He still seems cool with them. Trump, not so much.
Yeah, exactly. And this whole COVID thing, though, I'm not sure that we're going to be getting a whole lot of students coming in.
Yeah.
Yeah. So who knows for this year? Yeah. But, we'll ride the wave and then figure it out.
Yeah. I was saying it could end up being a good thing. But so normally my students come in when they're entering their second year. That's where they start in my student rentals. Whereas what we might see then, so I still have leases signed up for this year, but for next year, there might be significantly less second years coming in. But if there's a lot more first years, because if I was going in the first year, I would be deferring. I would not go in to do first year online. I would say, no, I'll skip the year and I'll just start next year. So if that happens, then there actually could be too many students that want residence that can't even get into residence. So they might just end up renting a house, which would still help me. So I've got some saving grace. Hopefully, we'll see how it all plays out. But yeah, the name of the game is being able to pivot, right? Being able to repurpose and still find a way to cash flow.
Totally, absolutely, I agree.
Yeah. What's your background? You mentioned you do business coaching. Did you study business in school?
I did, yes. So I'm a CPA, CA.
Okay.
So I did study that in school. I didn't practice. I only practiced for 4 years. Basically, you had to practice for so long to be able to get your the CA designation at the time. And so that was my main thing. I just figured I just basically my decision to become a chartered accountant really had to do with nothing to do with the numbers, but who are the leaders out there of the larger organizations. And back in the day, when I was looking at that, so I went back as a mature student. So back in the day when I was looking at that, 80% of the leaders were either chartered accountants or engineers. So it was like, oh, okay,
Yeah.
I'm with numbers, so let's just do that, right?
That's true. A lot of executives were and probably still are CAs. That's fairly common, which, I mean, I guess like it makes sense because you need to know your numbers.
Yeah, for sure.
You do. I didn't I just went to business school. I didn't do a specialization in accounting or anything like that. But I actually used to tutor financial accounting just because that was part of the business curriculum. So I kind of learned that. And it's good to know your numbers. So I'm a bit of a numbers person as well.
Yeah, for sure.
mixed with other things too. Okay, do you mind telling me about? Well, first off, give me an idea of your portfolio. What's the 1,000-foot view of your portfolio right now?
Okay, so I have, not including my personal residence, I've got 22 properties. So they go from, I've got 2 single families, and I've got duplexes, triplexes, fourplexes,
Okay.
and the sixplex is my largest at the moment. I'm looking into getting into the bigger properties at this point, the 20 units, that kind of stuff. But I haven't done one of those purchases yet. I ended up putting an offer on an 81 unit building at the one point, and it didn't end up getting it, but it was pretty exciting for the number. If it would have worked out, it would have been a couple of $1 million in profit with just from fixing it up and stuff. Mm-hmm. And pulling out the cash. So, and so that's what I have right now in my portfolio. I do have, I've done a few flips, but for the most part, I buy and hold. So, I called it, everybody else is calling it now, the BRRRR strategy is really popular. So that's basically what I've done. I call it my 2 strategy combo. And I actually wrote a book on doing this kind of stuff. So, which ended up being a bestseller on Amazon. It went out, I think it was on Amazon in February. And right after, maybe a few weeks in, it hit the bestseller. So that was pretty cool.
Oh, congratulations. What's it called?
So I've got it here. It's called No Money, No Problem. Make Your First $1 million with Real Estate. The Secrets to My Millionaire Method Revealed. So,
okay. Well, I guess you'll have to give us the summary then. What's the Cole's notes of your strategy?
Yeah, so that's why I called it the 2 strategy combo. And it was kind of funny because right after I had finished writing the book, because I was so consumed with writing it, and so I didn't have time to read anything. And so the first book that I picked up after I was all done, I thought, okay, check out see what's out there right now. So I pick up this book, and it's about the BRRRR strategy. I start to laugh because I'm going, okay, my book's already at the editors, and so here I am. I've wrote the book on the BRRRR strategy, but called it something different. So yeah. So basically, it's all about you find a place. And oftentimes I'll buy the crack house, right? So if it's the only crack house on the street, I'll buy that crack house because the owner doesn't know what to do with it. Yes, right?
True.
How to get rid of tenants, and they're over their heads and so on. And so this is where you're able to get these properties for cheap, right? These $49,000 deals I just told you about, $40,000, $49,000. I have purchased some where I bought it where there were tenants in there and we were planning on keeping the tenants in there. So I would have purchased those for more like $120,000 for a triplex. So these I would get financed right off the get-go.
So you go with the bank right away?
Yeah, exactly. If I wasn't planning on getting rid of the tenants, I would, and bringing up the value quickly, then I would right away go with that. And if it needed some improvements, I would go with the financing plus improvements if that was required for those where I wasn't kicking out any tenants. But the other ones, for example, I bought a single family dwelling for $35,000 and put $8,000 into it, fixed it up, and that one there was appraised at $120 as soon as I was done.
What did you say you bought that one for?
35.
Okay, I'm gonna do this one as a case study because we're going through a lot. Okay, so 35,000. You renovated it for how much?
8,000.
8,000?
Yeah.
Why didn't somebody else do this?
So this was a private deal, and
Okay.
I pay people $500 if I buy a property that's not on the market. They found it for me, that kind of thing.
Yeah.
So I got people on the ground looking for me. And so this one here, the fella, he was out camping with my property manager was camping at the same site, and he had purchased it to fix it up. And he got partway through the project, and he lost his job, and he's like, I just want the money that I owe on it. So she asked him, how much do you owe? He said $35,000. And she said, okay, I've got a buyer for you. And so I went and checked it out, and I wrote the check for $35,000, and away we go.
Okay. So did you feel like it was worth more than that, or was that like a fair price for you to get it for in the state that it was in?
No, it was a great deal.
Yeah, it was a great deal. Yeah. So he just wanted to get done with it, just be done with it, be gone. Okay. That's a great situation. That's a great situation. Okay. So I've crunched the numbers here. So you're in for 43,000, unless, you had some carrying costs too, maybe 45,000, call it. Or no?
Yeah. And then the closing costs, the lawyer fees, legal fees,
okay.
right?
We'll call it 45,000. So 80%, did you get 80% on that, or 75?
80%.
Okay. So 96,000 is your new mortgage, which means you got to pull out 51,000. So you pulled out your whole down payment, all your renovation costs, and $51,000 in your hands. That's a great deal. Getting paid $51,000 to own a property.
And I didn't touch it.
Didn't touch it? Oh, you hired the work out.
Yeah, I hired a contractor to go do it. And so I basically went over, so I was explaining earlier that I was working 80 to 100 hours a week right back then.
Mm-hmm.
And so basically I crunched the numbers, and, I went to look at that property and wrote the check and walked away, and that's all I did. And so I was going to flip it, but then one of the contractor's employees offered to pay me $1,200 plus utilities a month. And so he says, oh, can I rent it off you? And I'm like, well, okay, I was going to flip it, but sure, if you're going to give me $1,200 a month, I'm going to do that. So it's within my portfolio.
What are your property taxes there?
The property taxes are probably, let me pull that up here just quickly. I want to say like $1,200 on that property or something like that.
Okay. And then insurance would be around $1,200 probably as well?
Yeah, same deal. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. So if we said 5%, maybe we'll say 10% for maintenance, just because it's so low overall. You pay a manager?
I have my own crew that takes care of my stuff. So yeah, I'm just looking here. The property taxes. No, I'm sorry. Apologies. It's $1,900 for the taxes.
All right, $1,900. Okay, so just throwing some numbers together. Okay, so management. What would your cost be? Around 5% then, if you have your own people?
Yeah, about 5%. Yeah, 4 or 5.
Okay, are you paying any utilities?
So he was paying the utilities at the time.
Okay, so none for you. So your cap rate on that, based on value, based on it being worth $120,000, is about 7.2%, which obviously that's not the way residential appraisers are valuing it.
No, that's right.
So you would have got a 30-year mortgage then?
That one is 25.
That one was 25. Approximately what interest rate?
2.69, I believe it is.
Okay, so $280 a month cash flow based on those numbers.
Yeah, and these are my lowest ones. So my 2 single-family dwellings, they're my, so they cash flow somewhere around, $200, $300, $400. The rest of my portfolio cash flows anywhere between $500 and $2,500 per month.
That's great. Well, hey, there's nothing wrong with this deal. I mean, $51,000 in your pocket, plus you get an extra $280 a month. I guess the challenge is, if it's a lot of management effort, brain wise, it's not a huge return overall. Not to say it's not great, but yeah. So you'd get mortgage pay down of about $2,900 a year. Cash flow would be about $3,300, and then you'd have annual appreciation. What would you figure? Like 2% a year? Kind of just inflation, or
Timmins doesn't
go up
a whole lot. Yeah,
we'll call it 0.
I don't count on appreciation at all in Timmins. I just count.
Which I think any investor should almost just not count on appreciation, because what happens when you don't get it? If you're relying on it, you're in trouble.
That's right.
Yeah, it's the cherry on the cake, but it's not. It shouldn't be it shouldn't be your cake.
That's right.
So $6,300 a year between mortgage pay down and cash flow, which again, for something that paid you $51,000 to keep, that's not a bad deal.
Not bad at all.
That's
yeah,
okay.
For sure.
So we can't calculate a return on investment here because you have no investment. You've got all your money out, just your time.
Yeah, it's infinite.
Yeah, that's a fantastic deal. So that was a few years back, was it?
Yeah, so that one was part of my 18 deals within 12 months that I did.
Okay.
Yeah, so that was one of them.
Okay.
And
how long ago was that special 18 months?
That was 2012. Yeah, 2012, 13.
Okay.
Okay.
Yeah. Your interest rate was probably a little bit higher back then. 2.69
no, it wasn't
now?
actually.
You got that?
It was always under. It was actually always under 2%. So
or under 3 anyway.
1.89, 1.99 was normally the terms that I would go with for at that particular point in time. I was dealing mainly with Scotiabank.
Wow.
And yeah, they were closing. They were, just the lawyers and everybody just couldn't figure out because they're going, oh my gosh, like they were letting me close deal after deal after deal and not putting on the brakes. And people are going, I can't believe you're doing this. So.
Well, yeah, that's the next big question here is, most people are getting maxed out with most lenders at 5 properties. I believe Scotia will let you get to 10. I don't know if that's in total or with them, but so assume it's 10 with them. But I mean, how are you growing to the point of 22 properties? Do you have joint venture partners or are you doing it all on your own?
So I've got most of them are on my own until I got to a point in 2013 where I had 4 deals on the table and I didn't have money for the 4 deals. And so I had a couple of people that kept bugging me, saying, I want in. And I kept telling them, why would I give you 50% of this when I can keep 100%, right? I don't need you. So these were initially what I was saying. And then finally, when I had these 4 deals on the table that I couldn't close on all of them, I didn't have enough cash to do that. And so I said, okay, so you want in? So now is the time. I don't have the cash for all of them. So if you want to, do a couple with me, then let's do it. So that's what we did. That was my first partner. And then he ran out of cash. And so I did 2 deals with him. He ran out of cash and I went to the other person that kept bugging me to get in. And I said, okay, here's the time. And if you want in, so I did 2 deals with him. So I did a total of 4 deals with 2 different joint ventures in 2013. Now I've got 2 other partners now I set up corporations. And so I've got 2 other corporations with 2 different partners. And we purchased, one of them, we did 2 properties and they put the brakes on. And the other one, we're doing flips. So
okay, nice. Yeah, that's the way I set up. So I had a friend of mine that we did several flips together, and we both had our holding corporations, and then we created a corporation together to do the flips. So that's a great way of splitting things up. You being the chartered accountant would know.
Yeah, for sure.
Do you find yourself, because obviously you're going to be a bit of a perfectionist, knowing that you know how to do it best? Do you find yourself doing a lot of your own books or getting into that side of things, doing your own financial statements, or do you just leave that to somebody else?
So that's a good question. So I keep wanting to give it away, give it to somebody else to do, but I'm a procrastinator. I'm not gonna, I'm gonna say it as it is, and so I procrastinate a lot. And I feel like because I'm a chartered accountant, for me to bring a shoebox to an accountant or a bookkeeper would look really bad on me. So I still end up doing it myself, and I get to the last minute and I'm like, oh, okay, now I can't bring it to anybody to do. And I ended up doing it myself. And it just, at the end of the day, it only takes me, it doesn't take me very long to get it done. Yeah. But yeah. I just I threw all the receipts in the box and, one of those paper boxes there. And then once a year, I just get it all done. So sometimes I try to do it twice a year, but I just end up so busy and,
Okay, so you don't do any intermittent bookkeeping or anything. You just have end of year bookkeeping on all 22 properties.
Pretty much.
And they're mostly held personally, or do you have a chunk in a company and then a chunk on your other companies with your other JV partners?
So I've got my corporation where I have with my husband, and which actually he wants nothing to do with real estate, so so it's all me. So I've got that corporation, and then I've got the other 4 corporations with the partners. And I shouldn't say, okay, I'm going to apologize. I did lie. The ones where I have partners, I do it quarterly. So I do the bookkeeping quarterly because I give them some reports. But mine, where I've got 15 properties, these I end up doing at the end of the year. So
that must not be fun.
No, I know. I keep looking at the box. I'm like, I so don't want to do this.
You get it on QuickBooks Online. Is that what you're using, or you're not even using any QuickBooks?
Just Excel.
Just Excel. That's surprising. I wasn't expecting that.
Yeah. It's just easy. I don't know.
There's no built-in reconciliation though, right? I feel like I might miss something. I don't want to have to do the reconciliation myself.
Yeah, no, you're right. You're right, but I don't know, because
it's your system. It works for you.
Yeah, just because I procrastinate. It's just like I don't want to start going to QuickBooks and doing all of that at the end of the year because I'm trying to hurry up and get her done, right?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Oh no, if you're gonna do that, like, you keep up on it every day or every week. I would say, like, I'm in my QuickBooks at least every week. It just, as I'm like paying invoices, because I have my companies as well that are active, and I'm just paying an invoice. I just enter it right in as I go. So that's not what you're doing though. You're just living off your properties pretty much. Is that fair to say?
Yeah. It's
you have coaching too, right? That business.
Yeah, I was gonna say I also do the coaching. So I've got, so that's another corporation on its own.
Okay.
And so I do that as well. So I'm, I could just live off of the real estate, but I'd be bored to death. So
Well, I was going to ask you what you do for fun, what do you do on an average day, right? Like, because, you're living off the properties, but everybody I know who's living off their properties wants to do something still.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. We're very outdoorsy. So, we'll, whether it be like right now, I'm working on a big project. We've been working on this project, landscaping. We've been working on it for the last 4, maybe 5 years. And I live on the lake. And so we're doing the whole lakeside. And I've got probably, I'm going to say maybe 2,000, 2,500 square feet of walkstone that we're doing, but you had to dig it all up. And so I've got my tractor. So I've got my tractor. I dug it all up. That took a year because it was all clay. And I had to move it all. And then we had to fill it. So the whole 3 feet. So, so basically on my tractor pretty much every day, going down, working on that project, for so many hours a day. And
But you're not working on your properties. You don't do that.
No. I don't work on my properties.
Okay.
So that's the one good thing about it being in Timmins. It's not in Sudbury, because if it was in Sudbury, I'm going to guess that I'd probably end up working on my properties. And I really, sometimes I do though. Sometimes I want to, except for, for the most part, I don't want to deal with the tenants. And so that's one of the things where, so glad that my employees have to do that. I did do the one project where my contractor, he called me up. The deal was just about to close and told me it was my biggest project actually at the time. It was a triplex, and the whole thing needed to be gutted and redone. And it was just, it was huge. And the contractor calls me up a few days before closing and he says, "Lyn, I'm really sorry. I'm not going to be able to do this job." And I'm thinking, okay, this isn't cool, but he got this contract out west where he was going to be making over $1 million in, the next 6 months. And I'm like, well, you're never going to make $1 million off of me. So I get it. You've got to do what you got to do. But then I was stuck with it and I'm going, what the heck am I going to do? So I ended up going to Timmins and went up there, checked it out, and then my husband came up with me. That's the only one, I shouldn't say the only one. He's helped me on a couple of occasions, but that was one of the times where he came up and gave me a hand. He knew I was in a little bit of a pickle, so with my contractor taking off. And so anyway, he came up and he took 2 weeks off. I took 2 weeks off work and we started going through the project. And then I ended up hiring my first maintenance person. And that's another story on its own. this guy here, he ended up, my property manager was new at the time, and my employee was my first employee that I had hired on. And so she was telling me she was having a hard time renting out the main floor of the property because of all the foot traffic going upstairs. So she says, the guy's dealing drugs. I don't know how to, what do I do? And so I can't rent this place out. So I told her, I said, well, let me show you how this is done. So I wasn't, having been a, not so great teenager, so I wasn't too afraid of these things. I ended up working, when I was 18, I was working in a bar. I had a child when I was 18 years old. So anyways, I had to figure out how to put food on the table. So I went to work in this really scuzzy bar. So I had to deal with all these crazy people. So anyways, so I ended up, so I got a little bit of street smarts, let's just say. And so I went and knocked on the door, and this young fella, probably maybe, I was going to say he's like 22 years old or something like that, answers the door. And he says to me, I asked him, I said, how are things going? And he says, good. I said, well, okay. We're having a really hard time renting the main floor, apparently because of all the foot traffic coming up here, I said, I've got a little bit of an issue with that. He said, I don't care what you do for a living. I said, but, just keep it out of the apartment, please, so that we can get this place rented. He's like, no, I don't do that. I said, no, okay, don't get me wrong. I don't care what you do what you will, but just keep it off premises. So anyways, he says, well, I have to pay my rent. And I said, okay, I get it. Yes, you have to pay your rent. And so I said, why? He says, I can't find a job. So, I've got to do what I got to do to make a living. And I'm like, okay, I get it. Absolutely. But do you actually want to work? And he says, yeah, I want to work. I said, well, okay, are you handy at anything? And so anyways, like I said, I've got this big project going on, right? So anyways, he says, yeah, I can swing a hammer. And I was like, okay, do you have steel toe shoes? And he says, yeah. I said, okay, I'll pick you up at 8:30 tomorrow morning. So anyways, he ended up being my first maintenance employee. And he's still clean today. He's never actually gone back to the drugs or anything else. I think he was selling marijuana at the time. Like it wasn't, anything. Yeah.
Now we can buy it online, so we don't.
Exactly.
About that.
That's right. So anyways, so he ended up being my first maintenance employee. And then, but we kept, so I stayed there for a little bit longer. My husband had to go back to work. And so I was managing the project in Timmins and actually working on it. And for like 4 weeks, I think it was, something like that. And then I had to go back to work. So I ended up going to check up on the projects every weekend and stuff at the time. But, and then finally my contractor calls me up and he says, okay, this whole deal out there went south. And I'm like, yes, sorry to say, but yes. So he came back and he finished the project for us. But it all worked out in the end. It's a lot more headaches than I would have wanted, because basically normally I just, I go to Timmins to check out the property on inspection. I don't even go to check the properties before. I put in blind offers, but I put conditions on there.
Okay.
So I put my conditions on, and then I just go in to check out the place once I actually I go through a couple of things. The first thing I do, so we put in the blind offer, like my real estate agent, nobody goes in. We just put in the blind offer, and then once it's accepted, my real estate agent will go in with my property manager and usually my contractor. And then from there, what they do is they either tell me it's a yay or a nay, and then I go for the next inspection. And there's only one property where I didn't go, and it's probably the only property I would not have purchased had I actually gone to see it. So I figured I won't be doing that anymore.
Yeah, it's not ideal. I have bought a couple without looking at them if I had a good relationship with the agent. But yeah, you really got to be on the same wavelength to do that.
Yes.
Really do. Otherwise, you can get yourself into a little bit of trouble.
Yeah, totally. Yeah.
I didn't really like feeling detached from my properties. I like knowing exactly what I bought, and I didn't like not knowing what was there. So that was
Me too. Yeah, I was flying around the country, like across the country with work. I just didn't have time for that one purchase. And let's just say it still makes me money, but it's it's not ideal. I ended up you must have heard of Knob and Tube before.
Oh yeah.
Okay, well, the seller hid it very well. And when we ended up taking some paneling off, we noticed it was like to everywhere where you can actually see it was upgraded, but behind the walls it was all up in tube. We had to take everything down. Yeah.
That's I feel like that's pretty common. I've seen it in attics. I've seen them like strung across the rafters. Those you can actually spot, but if you could see it in some spots and not in others, you just almost have to assume that it's behind the walls. But the thing that the insurance company seems to ask is any that you're aware of. And if you're not aware of any other, and I'm by no means making any recommendation, but I've had this conversation with my broker, and he's just like, "Well, what do you know?" And I'm like, "Well, from what I can see, it's been upgraded, or it's been at least they put the GFCIs on them on the circuits to stop them from starting a fire if there's ever a short." So there seems to be ways around it if you've got it, but I don't like having it. To me, I've had problems in houses that have had it, and it's not something you want to hang on to.
No, for sure. And
not for long-term keeping, right?
Yeah, it's dangerous. And, the last thing I want is to have known that there was knob and tube in there and not replace it, and there's a fire and somebody gets hurt, right? Or worse, dies. Yeah. No, I wouldn't want that on my, I wouldn't be able to sleep at night. Let's just say.
Right. Well, I was going to ask you how you sleep at night, because you're 3 hours and 18 minutes away from your properties, which isn't like terrible. That's roughly equivalent to me versus like me going to Windsor. If I was going to invest in Windsor, I'm about the same distance away. I don't invest there. I'm in London with my investment, so I'm about an hour and 25 minutes from my stuff. But you've got to have a certain level of confidence that you're not going to need to start driving up there 3 times a week, 4 times a week to get things back on track. I mean, you're at the point now where that shouldn't be an issue because you're well enough established. And I feel that same way about London. Like now I shouldn't have that problem. But if I were to go to a new market, not the city of Newmarket, but any new market, I would feel like I need to be able to react that way. I need to be ready and able to drop everything if something were to go off the rails, and do exactly what you did. Go up there for a few weeks and just clean it up. Did that just happen the one time for you? It never happened again?
Yeah, no, it only happened the one time. And so I went an entire year because I was working so hard with that turnaround. I went an entire year where I didn't even go to Timmins. Not even to check out on any of the properties or anything. Thing was just rolling smoothly. I had my contractors lined up. My property manager was managing my employee. So my employee that was managing my stuff, she was also managing the contractors, and all was great. And so I don't recommend anybody not go check up on their properties for 12 months, but it was just, like I said, I was working 100 hours a week. So you're like, time's limited. So when I was earlier in my investing years, I was investing in Youngstown, Ohio, which was like a 6-hour drive for me. And I did go more than a year without looking and checking, and things weren't going well. And had I gone down, I probably could have stopped my one place from being destroyed. So there are negatives to it. And, I'm glad it worked out for you. I try and do like once every 3-4 months at the very least. Yep. And then, maybe extra on top of that. If I'm down anyway, I might just pop into 1 or 2 of them and then, hit the rest the next time. Yeah, for sure. So I'll go up, I probably go up once a quarter and, just to check up on the properties, go, chat with my staff, take them out for lunch or, that kind of stuff. Yeah. So I don't go check up on every one of my properties. Like I'll do a drive-by and stuff just to see what's going on. But I don't go and do like the inspections and that kind of stuff. I leave that to my staff.
Tell me a horror story, something that's happened and how you dealt with it.
Okay. Yeah. Oh yeah. I've got a few of these. Yeah. And pick up the book. It's, there's a few in there. Quite interesting. Okay. So I'm going to tell you the one that, so I've got this property. I purchased the property for $15,500. And so it's got, the front house is a duplex. The back house is a single family dwelling. And so 15.5. And so I had to replace right off the get-go, the panels because there were 60 amp panels. And so I had to upgrade those, the 2 for the front house. The back house was actually it was like a shed sitting on railroad tiles, but they converted it into a house somehow, and somebody was living there, and it was all crooked. And anyways, it had to be torn down. So, so December 1st, so we purchased it. Closing was, so this was 2018. So anyways, it closed November 28th, I think, 2018. And so on December, so we went and told people that were living there, we said, okay, guys, you got to pay rent to me on the 1st, not to the old landlord, and so on. And anyway, so they said, no problem. So I ended up, so on the 1st, they went to collect and nobody paid, of course. And so, which I expected, right? I mean, yeah, so there was a reason why they were having such a hard time selling it. And I ended up getting it for $15,500.
Yeah, that sounds like a joke. 15,000.
I know. You can't, you buy a used car for that, So anyways, yeah. So yeah, no rent. So we gave them their notices and stuff. And anyway, so we finally ended up, so it goes to court, and the fellow in the back house, he had some challenges. I thought he was schizophrenic, but it wasn't the case. It was something else. Anyway, I think he got hit by a car when he was younger. And so anyways, so I go, we go in there with the sheriff. So the sheriff goes in, and I told the sheriff, I said, like, hey, this guy, I decided I was going to go there to meet with the sheriff because I was worried about this fella, that he wouldn't understand that he's being put outside. Right. And so, anyways, the first tenants, I didn't care. They yelled, whatever they were yelling at the sheriff and doing whatever they were doing. And then, but then this one in the back, when we went over there, I told the sheriff, I said, he's not going to understand. So anyways, we ended up chatting with him, and he's like, just kept going on and on about, just about different things that had nothing to do with him moving out. Right. And so then the sheriff looks at me, he goes, oh my gosh. Okay. I see what you're saying. So he calls the police. So the police come over, and they're trying to explain to him that he's got to move out. And, can I take you to the hospital? Can I take you somewhere? The guy's saying, nope. I don't want to go anywhere. And they said, well, he knows his name. He knows he lives here, and he knows his date of birth. And therefore he's coherent, and we can't just take him away. And I'm thinking, this poor guy. I'm like, really? So then they called the ambulance to see what they can do, and they couldn't do anything about it. And this guy's like, he's on his bike, and he's got this helmet on, like more of a hockey helmet or something. And he's just standing there, and it's like, okay, well, Joel, do you have like a mother or a father? Do you have like a sister or, a brother? Kept saying, nope. I'm thinking, oh my gosh, like we can't just leave him outside like this. He's gonna, the poor guy. So anyways, so finally the police officer is on the phone trying to get this guy some help. Nobody can do anything. We're talking about, okay, it was the first tenant was at 1:30. So this is like, I don't know, maybe 2:00. Now it's like 4:15, still nothing. And finally I said, okay, you know what? I have a vacant apartment. Let's put him in there. I can't leave this guy on the streets. I said, but we'll call ODSP and see if we can get them to pay direct. And I said, if they agree to do that, then I'll agree to put him into one of my units, and we'll leave it at that. So anyways, so the guy finally, it took like forever for us to convince him to go see the place. So I put him in my car, and I brought him over, showed him the place. And I'm like, look, Joel, I said, there's no leaks. It doesn't leak in here. I said, look, there's lights, and there's like, things work. And so anyways, there's water. And anyways, so finally we managed to convince him. So we get back to his place. I said, we're going to help you. I got my crew to go to help him bring a few things over, and so that he'd have a mattress. And I said, well, we'll bring your mattress and some blankets. I don't have a mattress. I said, well, where do you sleep? He says, I don't sleep. And I'm thinking, oh my goodness. Okay. So anyways, so we go back, and I went into the place to help him take a few items out. And he says, I have to pay my rent. I'm like, okay, yeah. But he's looking through his papers, and then shuffling through papers that he took from on top of his fridge. And he goes, and I really need to pay my rent. And I'm like, yes, Joel, you have to pay your rent. But, right now, let's just get some of your stuff. And he says, oh, no, I have to pay my rent. And I said, well, do you have the money, Joel? And he says, yeah, I have money. And I thought, well, maybe he's got $50 or, who knows, right? So anyways, he goes into this room and I'm just kind of standing at the, on the outside of the room, and he goes and leans over and he's doing something, shuffling something. And I'm like, what the heck's he doing? And so anyways, comes back with a whole bunch of $100 bills, and he's counting. He's like, how much do I owe? And he said, like, so I counted it and I figured it out, and he's counting $3,200 or whatever the heck he owed me in $100 bills. And then he goes to somewhere else, pulls out a 50. So he gives me all this money. I'm going, okay, you're being evicted. You had all this money, but he was waiting for the old landlord to come and pick up the rent. But the bank took over because the guy had lost the place. And so he was holding on to all this money to pay the landlord that never came because he didn't know us. We'd go knock. He's like, I don't know. You didn't open the door, right? So anyways, and then he says, oh, I have to pay first and last for the other place. How much is that? So I told him how much, and he goes back to his little safe and he pulls out a whole bunch more $100 bills and starts counting it. So anyways, yeah, pretty crazy.
Sounds like a great tenant now.
Yeah. He's still living there, like at my other place, right? And so so that was pretty cool.
See some interesting things out there. That would be a hard situation to handle. So I mean, wow, that's a good story.
Yeah. I always tell everybody, just always do the right thing. The sheriff shaking his head. He's like, I've never seen anybody do this before. Yeah. He says, are you sure you want to do this? He hasn't paid you your rent. So anyway.
That was bold. That was bold to offer him another place when you're having that kind of issue. Holy. But I'm glad it's working out for you. Now you seem very like you're comfortable kind of taking like a little bit of a risk. You kind of you must trust your gut on these things.
Yeah, exactly. I trust my gut. And had I not been able to get a hold of ODSP, I probably would have still done it. I don't know. I just couldn't leave him out there. Nobody could do anything for him. It just wasn't right,
Oh, that's really nice of you. I'm glad that worked out.
Yeah, for sure. I've got another story. I've got tons of other stories where it didn't work out so well. But there's people trashing places.
Like you bring in the sheriff and they're like throwing things and stuff. I've heard those stories. Fortunately, never dealt with them. I had some people have a paintball fight in one of my houses, but that was probably about the worst that happened. A couple of holes in a wall, but that's like a student thing to do. Not in my current ones, but that was a while back. So I have a question for you about your portfolio now. With 22 units, I'm guessing a large portion of those are personal.
So it's actually 60.
Sorry, 22 properties.
Yeah, so it's 68 doors.
68 doors. Okay. So with that, I mean, from a residential standpoint, you're pretty much tapped out at today's standards, unless you're going with either credit unions or doing commercial financing with the banks. Like, what's your strategy now? Are you still trying to buy more, or are you just kind of coasting it out with what you have?
So now I'm looking at the larger properties, right?
So commercial financing.
Yeah, exactly. And so I'm trying to find some decent, 20 units, 30 units, that kind of stuff. And so, but at this point, so I ended up, one of the mistakes that I made was one day, so my granddaughter is born and I was there for the birth and everything. And I thought, okay, life's too short. And why am I working 100 hours a week? And so I thought, okay, I'm done with this. And I was hating my job at the time because I had moved on when I did the turnaround. When that was complete, I was bored. So I went and found another job, another place that needed a lot of help. And it wasn't a good fit. And I was like, oh my gosh, I'm so hating this job. Well, I was hating the person I was reporting to, right? So not hating, but didn't enjoy reporting to this person. So the day she was born, I went, you know what, life's too short. And so the next day I quit my job and didn't really plan for it ahead of time, right? So borrowing afterwards, once I quit my job, then it became very difficult to borrow. And so one of the things that I do is I get, so I've got joint venture partners, and so, they bring in the cash and stuff. Then I've got, right now I'm working with RBC, to see if on the commercial side, to see if I can pull out some of the equity that I have in my properties, because I didn't plan that out prior to, and I should have. So that's one of the big things. Like if you're thinking of quitting your job at any point in time, make sure that if you're going to be wanting to do some refinancing, do it before you quit your job, and it'll be a lot simpler, and be able to qualify.
Yeah, that's good. So that was what I was wondering about, is how you're doing it, because typically banks don't like it when you're dependent on the income of the properties. They want to know you're getting money from somewhere else, so that you don't need to take all the money out of that property, and that you'll be able to fund maintenance if it needs it. And that's what commercial lenders want. So even if you have strong cash flow from the properties, they're probably still going to want to see that you don't need it. So maybe if you had a certain number of properties that you did touch and a certain number that you didn't touch, maybe they would work on that premise. But I think local credit unions would probably help you as well if you approach them, if it didn't work with RBC.
So I have 3 that are with the local credit union.
Yeah. They tend to be a little bit more flexible on their commercial side, depending on the one. I know a guy that was doing it in London, many student rentals, quit his job, and he was just doing student rentals near Fanshawe College, and they just kept giving him money until he finally hit so many properties. They're like, okay, you're done now. But no job. He was just making money from his properties. I was so impressed. So, every time I think that there's, no way of getting something done, I find out there is an investor that did something and got it done. So that's the cool thing, right? Sometimes you just need to get creative.
Yeah, exactly. Well, for me, when I've got some of the places that are out there that have 2 houses on one property. So this is where I hit the wall with Scotia, was that they said, we won't do these places that have 2 houses on one property. So then I had to go somewhere else. And so I don't know if you heard of Radius Financial.
Yeah, I know the name.
So I ended up going with them, and my real estate agent suggested a broker, and so I went with that broker, and then finally, so he was able to do these with Radius, which was really cool. Except for 5 years later, they send a letter, not to my home, but they sent a letter to the rental property. My tenant that was there happened to open it by mistake, just not realizing it was for me. And so she opened it up, and it was a letter stating that they were calling the loan. It was at the end of the term, and they were no longer financing multi-units within corporations. And so that was crazy. And I had done 3 of them within a month, like 5 years prior. So I'm like, if they're calling this one, they're calling both of the other ones too. And I'm like, holy crap, how am I going to, I couldn't borrow money. I couldn't get a mortgage because I'm self-employed, and I was, I didn't have a pay stub anymore. And I've got 3 mortgages being called within, I got to find, and they gave me, I think it was I want to say 45 days to pay it back, the entire amount, or else they were foreclosing. I'm like, holy jeepers.
That's something I never understood about. So the Canadian system versus the US. In the US, they can actually get 30-year mortgages, like 30, 25-year mortgages. Here in Canada, we get most people just get a 5-year, even though it's on an amortization for 25, 30 years. And I've worried about that exact scenario. What if one day they just decide not to finance that anymore? Then you have to pay out, right? We take it for granted that the bank offers us a renewal. They don't have to. They're not forced to. We just luck out.
Yeah, exactly. So I contacted, my mentors, one of my mentors, and I'm like, can they really do this? And he says, oh my gosh, I've never heard of a company do this before. I had never been late, not once, nothing, right? And there was nothing against me. And anyways, he says it makes no sense. Why would they do that? You pay you've paid it all along. And anyway, I called them up and I said, is this for real? You guys are really doing this? And is there anything I can do? And they said, nope. And so anyway, so I had to find some private money, but oh my gosh, I was a little worried there about where the heck this money was all going to come from.
Yeah, you don't seem to let it get to you. That's great, Lyn, that you're able to find a solution there. Private money's a good one. Yeah, but multiple buildings on one lot, usually you might still be able to get it financed, but they're not going to value that second building. They're not going to apply any value to it. So you'll be at significantly lower loan amount.
That's right.
Yeah, because they'll only do one house plus 5 or possibly 10 acres, depending on the lender.
Yeah,
So.
exactly. So so CIBC will do it. The credit unions will do it.
Like multiple houses on one lot, even.
Yeah,
Okay.
yeah. But they don't consider the property in the back. Like they just value the property and that's it. So.
And rightly so, because if they force a sale, like most people are not going to be able to live in two houses. They're only really going to value one anyway, right? Unless you can sever that, then it doesn't really have the true functionality.
Yeah, and you can't sever it because it's in the backyard, right? So
yeah, a little bit tougher. Anyways, well, it's been interesting chatting with you, Lyn. If somebody wanted to reach out to you and connect or follow your journey, what's the best way for them to do so?
Well, they can find me on Facebook, or they can email me at Lyn, so that's Lyn .Lebeau, LEB as in Bob, EAU, at live.com. That's probably the two best ways to be able to reach me.
Perfect. So I'll put that in the show notes. And is there anything else you'd like to share with our listeners and viewers? All your wisdom and your time in real estate that you think might. So we have a diverse base. We've got really experienced investors. We got some starting out. So I'll let you pick what kind of advice you want to give.
Well, for those that are just starting out, it's really just get in there and do it. Right? You've got to get into the game. Like don't try to time the market. Don't try to do anything like that. You just have to get in and do your first deal. And you're probably going to be scared. I was terrified when I did my first one. And so yeah, but if you don't get in the game, like it's like, my book, I talk about, it's like playing Monopoly, right? If you don't buy houses, you don't win the game. So, this is the game of life, and it's the same thing, right? So if you don't, 90% of millionaires became so by buying real estate. And so, if you're looking to get there, if you're looking to make your first $1 million, well, I mean, even myself working at my job, there's no way I could have tucked away a few $1 million within the short amount of time that I did, without buying real estate. Like there's, even if I was making six figures, which I was, and to tuck away, like how long would it take you to tuck away $1 million, right?
It takes so long. Yeah. Like that's the thing. Not that I need to convince the listeners here that they should invest in real estate. I think they're on that page, but I just couldn't understand why people wouldn't do it, because that exact premise. So if you make $100,000, $40K goes to the tax man, then you have your living expenses and everything else you're doing. So what are you saving? People who are doing really, really well might save $1,000 to $2,000 a month, somewhere in that ballpark. So if they're in that ballpark, how many years to save a down payment on, X property? In your case, in your market, you could definitely do it. But I mean, around here, it's all leverage. So it's just like constantly playing the leverage game, pulling more money out against that property, leveraging this property, and then watching them go up in value like crazy. But like you said, without doing that, without getting into the game of real estate, it would be hard to become a millionaire. And in today's economy, not so much the economy, but the tax structure and the tax system and the way that it just every year you're just taking away a big piece of it, right?
Exactly. That's exactly it. So yeah, so that would be, so the one thing for the people that are just starting out is, if you're listening to those podcasts and going, yeah, I really want to get in, but you're scared, just get her done. Get a coach. That's something that I found was very valuable. I've always paid for coaching for whatever I do. Been doing that since 2012. And so when I first got the coaching done, and that's the one thing, like, had I not gotten the coaching, I probably, like, there's no way I would have done 18 deals in 12 months had I not had some coaching, right?
It's amazing.
Yeah. So, but yeah, I figured, okay, I need to know what I don't know. And I don't have time, right? Time wasn't the friend, because I had calculated that the company I was working for had 12 months left before they went bankrupt. And so I knew I only had likely 12 months before I was out of a job. Right. So anyway.
So it was do or die.
Yeah, exactly. So that's basically what I did. Right. I figured out, okay, well, if I'm going to replace my 6-figure income, then here's what I got to do. And I got myself a coach and ended up being able to do that. So that was really cool.
That's awesome, Lyn. Well, it was really cool speaking with you. I mean, one of the things I'll take away from this is your demeanor. You seem to have a really good attitude about this stuff. Like, you don't let stuff get to you. You just deal with it. You roll with the punches. And
That's right.
I think it's critical in this game. You know, you chalk it up to, hey, this is part of this business, and you just keep sticking with it, and you make your way through.
For sure.
Awesome. Well, thank you again. And I'm glad we finally connected. So I'll look forward to staying in touch. And anyone wants to grab your book, where can they get that? On Amazon?
Amazon, yes.
Perfect. Okay. Well, it sounds good. I'll see if I can put the link to that in the show notes as well.
Sounds good. Thank you so much.
All right, Lyn, have a good one.
Thanks for watching today's episode. Just a friendly reminder to please rate and review this podcast on iTunes. If you're watching on YouTube, make sure that you smash the like and subscribe and notification bell. And also leave a comment. And hey, while you're at it, why not share this episode with somebody you think it could help? It helps this podcast grow, and I would really appreciate it. Thanks again. We'll see you on the next episode.